In this video, we're going to go over the functionality for the company user to manage their incoming applications. So now that they've created all of their job postings, applicants can apply to those jobs and the company user can review applications, mark them as hired, mark them as interviewing, send them an email, view their resume, and keep the process moving forward from there. So we're actually going to pull a lot of the same layout structure from the Jobs tab, which we created in the previous video, and replicate a lot of this here in our next tab, which is going to be specifically for managing applications. There will be a couple of adjustments, but we'll generally have the same type of layout. On the left-hand side, we'll display all of the applications, and on the right-hand side, we'll view details related to a selected application from there so we can make any adjustments. So I'm going to first get my second tab here prepared for working with those elements because I am going to copy and paste a few things. So for this tab 2, I'm going to rename this to say group applications, and I'm going to remove my my placeholder there. I'm also going to make this a row layout style, and we'll do a space around settings so that we can prepare for our 2 inner groups that we'll have here. So going back to the group jobs, all right, I'm going to copy both of the groups inside. So my left group list and then the right edit group. So I'll multi-select those just by holding down my shift key and hit copy. I'm not going to copy with workflows on anything because we're going to have very different functionality within the application management. I just want to copy the visual elements so that I have a quick starting point from here. So here's my second group for the applications down below. Now I do need to make this a little bit wider so that it can match up. Let's do 1000 pixels to match the jobs group. And I'll make sure that this group is selected before I right click and paste. Okay, so there are our 2 groups. Now I can go ahead and hide my group jobs so that I can clear my space here and just focus on the application management. Now I'm going to turn back on my element border so that I can see the boundaries of everything so I don't lose it. And we're going to start by modifying the content on the left here. So first thing is this repeating group. We're going to rename this so that it is RG applications. And this is now going to be a list of applications. So I'll change the type of content to application, and the data source is going to be a search of applications specifically for our company. And we're probably going to have a filter here so that we can filter applications by a particular job post or maybe even by the status of the application. I'll go ahead and set the sort date by the creation or the sort by field by the creation date so that we see the newest application at the top. Okay, and then inside, right, we have our 2 inner groups here. So we just need to make sure that our data sources line up. So this type of content is going to be application to match the cell, and then the data source is the current cell's application. Same thing on the right. We want to make sure that the type of content here is application. So now everything inside of these groups can display information tied to the application. I'm just going to have this display the application's applicant's name. So we'll show the full name there. And then down below, we'll display the related job that they're applying to. Because I could see a mix of applications across multiple jobs, I want to make sure I can easily identify applications for specific jobs, in addition to a filter that we'll add here up at the top as well. So we'll display here the parent group's applications, job posts, and then the title of the job post. I'm going to remove this link that we added here before. There's really no need to go to a separate page for it. We just want to see the name of the applicant and then the title. This button, I'm going to change this to say view so we can view the application because we're not really editing it. That would be more the applicant's job to modify the application if they wanted. Maybe they want to change out their resume or something. And then down below, we'll display the application's status. Now we might run into the similar situation here that we did with the job post where the application status is a text right there. And we could introduce an option set choice for this instead. So let's go ahead and do that change real quick here. Under the application data type, we can see this text field, and I'm going to rename this to say text. If we go into our notes here, it looks like our choices are going to be, let's see, revised, status values. We have a handful of them: draft, submitted, interviewing, withdraw, all of these different things. Let's grab all of them here. Actually, I'll switch over to my option sets because I can keep this notes window open and easily reference as I create these choices. So we'll call them application status option set. And then we'll create all the choices. It looked like it just went away. So I can go back to all my notes and I can see them right here as well. So let's do draft, submitted, interviewing, withdraw, offer extended, accepted, hired, offer rejected, lots of statuses, and then application rejected, like this. So these statuses can be set either by the company, the hiring manager, or the applicant themselves. It's possible that the company extends an offer, right? Offer extended, but then the applicant decides they don't want to move forward, so they can reject the offer. So both sides would have control over modifying the status if we wanted to build it out that way. So I'm going to close out these notes and go back to my application data type and create a new field for the status relating to the new option set choice right here. Okay, so now an application can be one of these statuses rather than depending on a open text field value here. It keeps things a little bit more consistent and less room for error in that case. Okay, so back to our design, we're going to swap this field out so that it points to the application's statuses display, right? This is the option choices built-in display field. And then on the right-hand side, we're going to modify this group so that we'll change this to view application. The type of content should be set to application so that when we click on view, we pass data from this cell over to that group. So we'll hook this up now. And now that I'm here and I've now worked with my second feature, I'm going to create some folders here so we can stay organized. I'm going to create a folder for job posts and a separate folder here for applications. That way I can organize all my workflows into the appropriate folders. So we'll take a moment here to move all of our previous workflows that were all related to job posts into that folder. That way you don't have to see all things together. It can get a little bit overwhelming with a very large single page application. Now this is by no means a busy application. There's very little going on here, but over time with more comprehensive, more complicated designs and elaborate workflows, it can definitely grow to hundreds of events. And so using folders to help you filter and see things by feature or by whatever category makes most sense for you is going to be very helpful. So these buttons here, tab 1, tab 2, and 3, they belong to our primary navigation. So I might create a new folder here called navigation or menu, something like that, and then move those items there. I would also put things like pages loaded workflows in here, any kind of generic page level actions would likely be categorized here. So back to our all workflows, we can still see everything if we needed to. This is the one that I just created to start things off for our applications. So if I go to that filter, this is all I have right now. So clicking on view, we want to display data over to the applications group. And actually, let me relabel this so that it's not plural because this is, I just selected the wrong group. So the parent group is called group applications and my inner group is view application, which makes more sense. that label does make more sense. So let's say view application here, that's the element that we want to pass data to, and the data to display is the parent group's application. The parent group being the parent group of our view button. If I hit reveal the element here, it's going to show me where that view button is. And now we can open up that right side over here and modify this a little bit. So when the company user is looking at it, they're not making as many changes to the application itself. It's more of a view display. They just want to see what the applicant, so this is another user, has provided as a part of their application. So I'm going to remove most of these items. Let me get rid of all of these here. We'll start things off with this group up at the top. And this is also going to be type application so that it passes that information in from its parent, which is the right side group here. And we're going to display just some general information about the application. So this text can display the parent group's application's applicant's full name. Let's go ahead and center this. And I'm going to copy this group, copy the text and paste it inside of the group. and then we can display the maybe the submission date. So we can say something like submitted on, and then we'll display the parent group's application's submission date. This will have a date and time, so full timestamp for us. I'll remove the bold here so that we have the applicant's name functioning more like a heading, and then the date, and then we can display the status below that. So we'll say current status is the parent group's applications. Then we'll go to our new status field and choose the option sets display. That's the built-in label for the status. Now let's have the user view the resume, which I believe is a file, right under the application data type. We have a field here which points to a file. Let's have the company user open that up just via a link element in a separate tab. So I'm going to add a new link element here to this group, and that way we can position it down to the bottom of this section. So let's make it the last item in this group's column. I'll center it, and we're going to design this to be a little bit more like a button compared to what we did earlier with the job post, where we had a link over here to go to the page for that job post. This is going to be more front and center button. So we'll call this view resume, will be the text for the link. This will be an external URL, and we're going to navigate the user to the parent group's application's resume, which is a file, URL, right? The location of that file, and we'll make this a new tab. So I'm going to style this a little bit differently. I'm going to remove the built-in style, give this a background color, have it look a little bit more like a button. We'll center the text, we'll vertically center the text inside of the button as well, and maybe we add some roundness to this. I'm going to go ahead and give our group over here on the right-hand side a little bit of a background color, but something that's a bit more subtle, something that's intended to stay there for the user. This isn't just a color coding thing for us for development. So I'm just going to make it a little light gray. That way the button, which is white, can stand out a bit more. And we'll go ahead and make that text bold. Let's go to the layout settings to adjust the width a little bit. So we'll say this can be 125 pixels wide, and we'll do an even 50 pixels tall. All right, so this is something that the company user will click on to view an actual resume in a new tab, whatever that file is. Now, below this, we can have some action items for the company user. So our negative action button can be mark as rejected, right? So this is a status update. Over here, we can have mark as hired. And let's have another one. Let me remove this drop down here. And we're going to say this is mark as interviewing. Okay, just like this. And let's move the interviewing one to the middle and change the style to be something different as well. Let's see if we have any other about this transparent button like that. All right, so the idea is it's very clear different action items that the company user can do here. In fact, let me pull this back to our success. I'm going to actually make it a little bit more similar, but just change the color here. Let's do like a blue type of color like that. And so clicking on these buttons would change the status. And I'm showing you this way of doing things so that you can see a different method of modifying the status compared to what we did with the jobs. With the jobs, we had a drop down that the user selected. Let me pull that group up here. They selected a status from the drop down to make that change. And now that still works, and you can use other inputs for doing that same kind of selection. Or you can use buttons where every button does a different thing. This is also helpful if the buttons need to trigger things like sending an email or updating other areas in the database. So having separate, very clear, separate elements for that can keep things organized for you. It also just makes things super clear for the user, you know, what clicking on the button is going to do. Some of these might even trigger a confirmation pop-up like we did with deleting the job in the previous video. So I think there's one more thing that I want to add here, which is giving the user the ability to send the applicant an email. Maybe they want to ask a question. They don't necessarily want to make a change to the status, but maybe get some clarification around something. The height of this button is really calling itself out to me, so I'm going to change the minimum to something a little bit smaller, a little bit narrower there. There we go. All right, so let's add one more piece here, which is a multi-line input to this group. And let me move that up here. And I want this to be at the end. And we'll make it centered and also fit the full width of the group like that. And this is going to be for the user to send an email to the applicant. I'm going to make the height of this a lot taller to encourage, you know, this is an email area. We would expect for multiple lines to happen here. And we'll have, how about we do an icon for this? Actually, this is a perfect use case for working with the align to parent layout style. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move this multi-line input outside of the group that it was in, but inside of this right side group still. And I'm going to put this multi-line input inside of its own container. So I'm going to right click and select align to parent. Okay, so right now it's just in the middle, or it looks like it's in the lower right corner. Let's make this in the middle of the align to parent group. Okay, so just to show you where we're at, we're here, and I'm going to rename this to group multi-line, or how about we call it group send email to applicant, to be more literal about it. And with this multi-line input that's inside of it, we'll add an icon, and the icon will sit in the lower right corner so that it can overlap the multi-line input. Now, I rarely design things where they're overlapping each other, but this is a really, this is a use case where it's a common design, especially with messaging applications, to have this kind of present there in the lower right corner. Now you could create some padding around the input here so that we don't get any text to overlap the icon or the icon to overlap the text. But this is where we can start here with this design. We'll create a send message icon like this. We'll change the styling just a little bit, maybe make it green, and change the size. It's a little bit too big. Maybe we'll do 40. It's still a little bit big. We'll do 30. 30 sounds good. 30 by 30, and push it away from the extreme corner just a bit by adding some margins. So maybe 20 pixels to the right, and how about 10 pixels from the bottom, so that it's just a little bit off from the edges there. All right, so now the company user can create and send a message to the applicant. The spacing of these elements feel okay to me. I think a couple of adjustments can be made, though. I'd like to put this group down closer to the bottom of its parent. I'd also like to add a little bit more spacing between the here and this button. So to fine tune these individual elements, I'm going to do the following. For this button / link that we have here, I'm going to add a top margin of another 20 pixels just to push it down a little bit beyond the gap spacing we have at this container level. I'm also going to have the group send email to applicant expand its height so that it's not fitting to content. It's just expanding to height so that it can push this down. Now that did create a little bit of an issue here where this icon is sort of off-centered compared to the multi-line input. I could have the multi-line input fixed to the bottom, and that would correct that for me. That way, again, the height is expanding so that it pushes this down, but these are still overlapping in the same way that they were before. I could have also adjusted the height of the input. I could have pushed the bottom margin of the icon a little bit more. So a lot of different ways to achieve the same look. So I'm going to leave it, like that. I may push this one. Let's add some top padding, I should say, to our group, maybe 20 pixels there, just to push this piece down a bit. And a little bit of bottom padding so that the buttons are not hugging the bottom edge of the group too much. So now this is feeling a lot more comfortable for me. Okay, so we have our design in place. We're missing one thing here, which is our filters for filtering our applications. We don't want to create a new application. That's not the company user's job. So I'm going to remove this button, And we're going to introduce another drop down so that we can filter by the job, but also filter by the status. We can combine multiple filters. So I'm going to have two drop downs here. I'm going to take down the width of these. So this one, we're going to rename this to application status filter, and we'll take down the width to 150. And we'll do the same thing over here. This will be 150, and we'll change this to, how about job filter, right? Because this one, the job filter might need a little bit more room to display the title of the job, I'm gonna make this a bit bigger to give it more room there. So we'll rename the placeholders here filter by job, and that one can still say filter by status. So now let's hook up the choices that they have for these drop downs. For the status, we're going to go to our new application status option set, and the source will be all status choices. For the job, we're going to search for the jobs that the company has. We don't want to filter by just any job. We need to filter them by the company job. So the type of choices is going to be job post, and the source is going to be a search for job post where the company equals the current user's company. Okay, and then the caption can be that job's title. So this will be a drop down of all of our job titles. Now we want to have these drop downs communicate with our repeating group. So we can search for applications for our company, but in addition to that, we can say the status needs to equal whatever the value of our application status filter is, that drop down's value. That's this one on the upper left. And further, we can filter by the job post. The job post has to equal our other drop down, which is this one up here. And remember to ignore empty constraints. Have that checked, because if they don't want to filter by anything, it'll basically be like Bubble is ignoring all of these. We'll only have the filter on the company, and then they can see everything together. All right, so let's take a quick look at what we have right now. We'll click preview, and then we'll go to the workflows to hook up those email and status change buttons. So I'm going to switch over to tab 2. I'm still logged in as Ross here as a company user for the City University company. And it looks like I'm not seeing anything related to the applicant's name. I am seeing a list of applications here. I see the title of the job. So I might have some blank records in my database. What I'm going to do here is add another constraint, mostly for this demonstration here, to filter and only show applications that have an applicant. So I'm going to say applicant cannot be empty. Normally, we shouldn't have applications in the system without an applicant, because that should never be a scenario, but we might have some blank records in there from testing. So we'll see if this extra constraint gives us a better list. Oh, it doesn't look like we're going to see anything there. So let me double check my database, do a little bit of troubleshooting here. And I'm going to open up in my applications view. I'm going to expose the applicant field, and I just want to see applications where the company is the company I'm running as right now. And I do see applicants there, but it's possible, I think I know what's going on. It's possible that the applicant records don't have full name values. They have emails, but not full names. So let's take a look at our application, or our applications. And no, I want to go to the applicants, the users. So I'm seeing a lot of users without name values here. Okay, so let's change the display of the full name to email addresses for now. And I'm also going to change this up here to email address. And I should be able to just remove this constraint, because it does seem like applications have applicants, but now that we're going to a field that we know will display something, that's all we're going after at this point. So back to tab 2, there we go. So we have email addresses here. And if I want to filter by status, we know that our applications don't have these new option set statuses, so I'm going to make some changes there in a moment. Filter by job, these are all of the jobs that the City University has. Now there looks like there's a couple there that don't have titles. So another thing that we could do within this filter is only offer job posts to choose from that are actually active, right? We're looking for job posts where the status of the job post is open, right? Or maybe where the status is not draft. Okay, and that could filter us down further here. Go back to tab 2, and you see how it removed those 2 empty ones because those are not considered, those were still in the draft state. Okay, now let's click on view for one of these applications. We can see all of our details here. There's the email, there's the submission date. This one doesn't have a status again because the status field is new. We just added that. So I'm going to go ahead and hook those things up so that we can edit the statuses and view them. We can also see that they're not appearing here again because they don't have those values quite yet. Let's see if this one has a resume. Looks like there's nothing there. Now there's some conditions that you can add around this so that they don't end up on a blank page like this. So we can do a condition that says if the parent group's application's resume is empty, then we can hide this button. That way the user doesn't get confused. And I would go to the layout tab and collapse that link when it's hidden. If we do not have a resume, we hide the element. And if the element is hidden, its height will collapse. And so everything down below it will shift up. That way we don't have some extra white space there. Okay, so let's hook up these workflows. Let's start with the mark as rejected button. So when this one is clicked, and we're gonna put it in our applications folder here. When this is clicked, we're going to make a change to the parent group job post. Nope, not the job post. This should be an application. So this group here needed to be reconnected to the application. So I'm going to change the type of content to application. Now we're good to go. It looks like that was an issue that we had in the issue checker. These are unrelated issues. Those are app level related to our Google Maps keys. We're not working with those, so that's okay. And so here back to this button, we're making a change to the application. And the only thing that we're going to modify here is the status field. And we're going to set it specifically to our rejected status, this one right there. And I can do the same thing for the other buttons, right? So, and I can quickly get there by just copying and pasting these workflows and switching out the values and switching out the buttons. So instead of mark as rejected, we'll go to mark as interviewing, go to this action and change this over to interviewing. Go to the other one here for the mark as hired, go to the action, change this over to offer accepted or hired. So the offer accepted status would be from the perspective of the applicant accepting an offer that was extended versus the company user marking the application as hired on their end. Okay, and of course you can add on to these workflows so that other things happen as well. You can send an email letting them know, hey, we've just, we're ready to schedule an interview with you. Here are some dates, or I'm sorry, we went a different direction, you know, very kindly turning them down, whatever you need to do from there. So let's hook up the email action here with this icon that we have. So when this is clicked, I put this in my folder as well. We can send an email. So this is under the email actions, and the recipient would be the parent group's application's applicant, which is our user, email address, like that. Sender name, you know, we can put the company name if we want. So this would be the current user's company name. Subject, we need more info about your application. Of course, I'm typing this in, so the subject would be the same every single time. You could also introduce a new single line input field to this group so that the user can type in their own subject if you wanted to do that and put that in dynamically. And then the body would just pull from the multi-line input. I would definitely recommend showing an alert message. We have one on this page already, and we can modify the message itself. So we can say email sent, something like that, to let the user know visually that something did happen in the workflow. Otherwise, they're going to click on that icon and nothing is going to change visually for them on the page. So having some kind of a clear indication that something happened is always very helpful. All right, so I think we've achieved the functionality that we were after here. I'm just going to view these different applications so that we can modify the statuses and see those things coming in. So let's say we mark that one as application rejected. We see that happening here and there. We'll go to the next one, mark as interviewing. We'll do this one, interviewing as well. This one is mark as hired. Now I noticed that this particular button has a condition on it that's making it turn green when I hover over it. I would probably get rid of that so there's no confusion. But we can see that those workflows are going through properly. If I wanted to send an email, hello, this is a test, we can send, it's going to send to this fake email. We do have that alert message show up. What I might also do is clear out those inputs so that it's another visual indicator to the user that it was sent, because it's going to reset itself. So we can do that with element actions reset. And while I'm here, let's go ahead and remove that condition on this middle button so that it doesn't turn green when I hover over it. The reason that this was here is because I copied this button from this one, and this had a style applied to it, the success button. So when I copied it over, I removed that style, which showed me what all of the settings were. I modified those settings, but those conditions do carry over, and so those just stayed there. But I'm going to remove them so that there's no confusion visually when we're working with this. All right, so from here, you can see that there's a lot of similarity between managing the data of job posts and the applications. Just a couple of adjustments got us, into a completely different feature set, even though a lot of our design matches the job post section, which helped us put it together a little bit faster. All right, we'll see you in the next video.